Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. I'm Jeannie Ryce, and I'm your co-host today. And, well, we're wrapping up our first week on doing the radio show, and I feel like it's been an awesome success. Just before we start the show, call number is 646-200-4169. That's 646-200-4169. And you all can go to our website at www.whyagain.com. That's WHYAGAIN.com/mindshifterradio.php. And there's instructions for listening and participating and all of the archived shows. Everything is out there. And we've just got a couple of people in the online and a couple of people in the chat room. And so I guess we'll turn it over and say good afternoon, Michael.
Well, good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here and sharing this space with everybody that's going to be joining us. We're looking forward to questions, thoughts, and, of course, our purpose is to restore human life to planet Earth, to restore the active presence of love to every mind, heart, and being on the planet, as, of course, we learn to do that for ourselves. And so our process today is that of looking at the Aramaic idea of forgiveness, and along with the Aramaic idea of forgiveness, to also come to an understanding of, well, it'll depend on questions, a whole series of tools. We've got dozens of different tools that we teach for how to return ourselves to our actual original state. You know, the question that we've asked at the beginning of our Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop for years now is, how many have ever held a newborn child, and how would you describe the essence of the child? And everybody's answer is always some variation on the theme of love. And we're offering that that's the best definition there is of human life. I was actually talking to a gentleman the other day, and we were talking about human life, and he said, well, you know, how do you define that? I said, you ever held a newborn child? That was the end of the conversation. It was just like plain as day. Everybody gets it. Everybody knows what human life is. The question is, do you ever function without a human life? Do you ever function out of hostility or fear? If you do, there's an answer. There's a how-to. There is a 2,000-year-old technology with which to remove the experience of hostility and fear totally and completely from your physiology, so that no matter what you face, no matter what happens in your world, you don't have to be in hostility or fear. You can actually stay connected to the active presence of love, connected to a human life. And it's an awesome process to enter into, and we're delighted that you're here to share with us. And anything we can do to support and assist, that's what we're here for. So, Jeannie, do we have any questions on the line? Anybody on the phone at this point? Anything in the chat room?
We do have one question, and it says, I'm doing a play, and part of the play is for 5 or 6 people to hold toy guns and point them towards one person. Of course, I have resistance to that because I believe that a gun, whether it's a toy or not, should never be pointed at another person. So I have said that I won't do that. I take responsibility for it triggering me since I've had 2 murders in my family. However, I'm also aware of the actual energy that is associated with the act of any violence. So is that energy there even if it's done on a stage play?
Well, my first thought would be that you look at the inside work as opposed to the outside work. And, of course, the outside effect is the pointing of the gun. The inside work is what trauma is or still in you around those acts of murder that you've experienced in your family. So the first order of business would be cleaning that up. And I'm in absolute agreement with you. You know, it's interesting. In the opening words in the book of John, which is supposedly a theological book, but when you get to it, the actual text in the original language, it's a physics book, and it tells you about it, how it works. And this is just such an awesome opening in that book. And what it says is, in the beginning, not was the Word, and the Word became flesh. And I know there'll be many people who object to this, but sorry, folks, I'm just reporting the news. But it says, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. And to engage in that mind energy of violence, thanks, but I don't think it's worth it. I know that we had a family member who was very much into the TV series Spartacus. And if you watch any of that and you look at the enthusiasm and the clarity and the power that the gentleman who played Spartacus does in that play, in that TV series, I mean, he's awesome. He is awesome at playing a killer. And when I heard at the end of the first season that they delayed the taping for the second season because he had cancer, the first words out of my mouth were, I wonder how much of the mind energy he took in to have to play that role as powerfully as he did, how much of that had to do with his cancer. And I understand they started filming the second series, and a couple of months later they thought he had been cured, and he was back with cancer, and I guess he's now finished with the show. Thanks, but make mine vanilla. You couldn't get me to play that role, because when you engage in mind energy, I said this the other day, but probably the greatest atrocity done to us as human beings is that we've had hidden from us, and we bought into this, we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. And the way we create, literally, you talk to the physicist. The physicist will tell you that mind energy becomes flesh. It's the same as the opening words of the book of John. You talk to the cell biologist, Bruce Lipton, go check his work out. You think a thought, the thought becomes a molecule. The molecule lands on a receptor site in the cell, and the cell replicates the molecule chemically. And now you're living with the chemistry of your thoughts. I think that there are certain thoughts that belong in human physiology, and I'd offer that the viciousness, the violence of pointing guns and playing that whole game is not it. Now, taking a step further, it was a time period when, personally, I wouldn't go to a violent movie because I was really about doing this work and embodying love. And I had the guidance, many years ago now, to go and see a film which is absolutely horrible. It was called The Island, and I refused to go. And my inner guidance was, Michael, you're going to go see this film. It's like, no, I'm not going to go see this film. Michael, you're going to go see this film. No, I'm not going to go see this film. You are going. Okay, I'll go. So I sit down in the theater, and the first scene is a boat in the Caribbean, and somebody crawls up over the back of the boat and very graphically hacks off somebody's leg. It's like, what am I sitting here for? And the feedback that I got was, Michael, you have a belief in a world of bodies. You have a belief in a world that's not true. And with that belief, you will create results. Sit here, breathe, forgive, and this is going to bring up everything that you believe about bodies and bodies being damaged. So take this as an opportunity to learn forgiveness. So you could, if you were really conscious, I'd say, play that part and allow yourself to let loose of whatever does not belong, to forgive. But personally, I think I'd pass. So that's kind of the direction I'd take it in as far as that question goes. And as we move forward in this understanding, we're really talking about subtleties of how energy systems work. Oftentimes people try to change an effect, something they've created, by going out and hammering away at the effect. When, in fact, the effect is a result of a cause, and the cause, if you look at a particular situation that you've been through 87 different times with 42 different people, you notice you're the only one that was there every time. As you recognize that, you start to realize you've got something to do with it. And when you realize you've got something to do with it, then you can start to clean up the inside where cause happens. I'll oftentimes ask people kind of tongue-in-cheek, how many have ever taken the geographic cure? If you go to the other side of the country, would people be different? And the person that picks you up at the airport finishes the sentence and the person that dropped you off started. How do they know what to say to you? It's really easy. You are literally, on an energetic level, and this can be proven in the laboratory, you are literally telegraphing exactly what you expect. And whatever you hold in the way of mind energy is a frequency. It's an energy. And by definition, think logically about energy. Energy is motion. And anything that's in motion sets up a wave. I'm sitting here at the edge of the pool with my feet in the pool. I love this technology world. I'm sitting here. The water's cold, by the way. If you've got any envy out north, you know the water's pretty chilly, so I'm not all the way in yet. But I'm sitting here at the edge of the pool. Imagine I get in the pool and I have a bucket of water underwater. I'm submerged in the pool, and I spin in circles. That spinning bucket is going to set up a wave in all directions. Guess what? Every thought you think, every thought you hold in your genetics radiates out a field. And that field is a resonating frequency that will bring to you a result. When they said to Yeshua, well, how do you tell? You know, in essence, they asked him, how do you tell what field somebody's radiating? He says, just look at their fruit. Just look at the results they produce. And once you start taking responsibility for and looking at your results, you get a chance to go back and change the source of it, your mind, your thoughts. And that's the basis of our work here on this show and the whole MindShifters process. Support groups all around the country. You can look at our website, whyagain.com, and figure out if there's a support group in your area. If there's not, we'd encourage you to start one. We'll support you starting one. We'll assist you in starting one. What most people do, now that doesn't mean you have to be an expert at this work. It just means what most support groups do is they order a set of DVDs and they start showing the DVDs and discussing them and doing worksheets together, actually doing the work together. That's a powerful thing to do.
I got an addition to that question there. They understand that and said that, you know, their total agreement and everything, but they also wanted to know, since it's done without any ill effect and because it is a comedy, is the energy still being projected?
Well, you know, there's a power in you that doesn't know what it is that, whether you're doing comedy or you're doing serious. Now, I use an example in my workshops when I talk about the fact that in us is a power that knows how to do everything. And, in fact, we don't know how to do anything. If you go back 2,000 years ago, you hear Yeshua saying, of myself I do nothing. I go to the Father. The Father within me does the works. And so, you know, I'll ask the question of an audience. Anybody here know how to raise your arm? And, of course, a couple of people will raise their hand. Most people are hesitant. Oh, gee, I don't know. Is that a trick question? And so the person who puts their hand up and says, I know how to raise my arm, I say, well, okay, would you explain the process to me? I want to know what brain cells fire at what voltages. It's electrical. Moving your arm is an electromechanical process. What brain cells fire at what voltages, what nerve pathways to what muscles, and what's the balance, counterbalance, and all the muscles involved in raising your arm? Did you know the muscles in your legs are involved in raising your arm? And if you've ever broken your arm, you know that. When you move the leg muscle, the arm hurts if you've got a painful break. So nobody knows how to do it. We set the image, and something in us does the work. So I'll set an imaginary table up in front of the room. And I'll ask everybody in the room to please imagine that I've put enough frogs on the table for everybody to reach out and pick one up. So imagine in your mind's eye that you now reach out and pick up a frog. And anybody who's listening to the show, imagine this table sitting in front of you. In your mind's eye, reach out, pick up your frog, and really look at it closely. You know, pick it up close, smell it, view it from every angle, and then I ask my audience to describe it to me. So people will talk about, bulging eyes, you know, shiny, slimy, green, brown, yellow, all sorts of different colors, cute, ugly, plastic, you know, all kinds of different descriptors of this little animal. And then I point out that what I put on the table was enough 3 by 3 by 3 styrofoam cubes. They're called frogs. Florists use them to arrange flowers. Enough of these styrofoam cubes for everybody to pick one up. But notice that that power in you that reaches literally to all corners of the earth for everything you ask for, that power in you can only reach for what fires in your brain cell structure. And if what fires in your brain cell structure is a little green animal, then that's what you reach for. If you have, say, for instance, and I'd offer that information is stored in the mind in files, so to speak. If you have files in your mind, let's say in your relationship file, painful, traumatic, hurt, I always get taken advantage of. And, of course, many people do lots of affirmations, and maybe around that kind of a file they do an affirmation, something like, I always have wonderful relationships, and I'm always taken care of in relationships. But because the mind works as a resonance device, if I have denied and dissociated from, if I've hidden from myself my pain, then what happens when I say I have wonderful relationships is it resonates my whole relationship file. That's called the file folder effect. And so the power in me has to reach out on an energetic level and resonate or pull somebody into my life that matches what I'm asking for. And again, the Aramaic physics language, they knew exactly how it worked. They said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. The heart is a code word for the unconscious. The heart is a code word for the dissociated mind. Or they said most people wander in the desert for 40 years. The desert is a code word for the dissociated mind, for the unconscious. So when they said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life, they were saying, you can affirm in your head till the cows come home. What that power gets to work with, the frequency, the field that reaches out from you to bring results, is going to be whatever you hold at the deepest levels of your mind, the dissociated mind, the unconscious, the desert, the heart. And so once you recognize that, then you hear in a whole different fashion this man named Yeshua who says, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother. Now, for me, when I was a kid and up into I started to understand the Aramaic, I had Greek interpretation to that, and it was kind of like a bleeding heart. Oh, you forgive from your heart. You be a nice guy and you forgive them from your heart. That's not what he was saying. What was said is, you've got to go into your unconscious. You've got to go into your dissociated mind, and the aberrant energies with which you're making up the picture that you hold of your brother, you have to remove. Now, of course, everybody believes that they're absolutely accurate about everybody else. Yeah, well, my brother really is that way. But notice that when you put the shoe on the other foot, you know all kinds of people who totally misperceive you, who think of you saying and doing things, accuse you of saying and doing things you never said and did. And of course, that's them. We wouldn't do that. The truth is, you do that all the time, anytime. How can you tell if you're accusing somebody of saying something they didn't say, doing something they didn't do? Hostility or fear in your physiology is a marker that something hidden is coming from your heart, from your dissociated mind, and building a picture of somebody else. And anybody in hostility or fear accuses others of doing things that are going on in their minds. That's how the mind works. So when Yeshua is saying, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother, he's saying, you've got to go into your own unconscious and remove all hostility and fear. Elsewise, you'll be sure somebody else is the problem in your life. And, of course, you've heard me say it if you've been on the show all week, and I say this often kind of tongue-in-cheek, is you'll notice if you've been through a particular painful reality 87 different times with 42 different people, you are the only one that was there every time. It's your mind that needs to be changed. And it is forgiveness that changes your mind. Got nothing to do with letting somebody else off the hook. Never forgive anybody for anything. If you've got some form of hostility or fear, take the forgiveness process, which is reality management worksheet. It's free on our website. Start to use it, and you'll change the content of your mind. And watch how the miracles happen. Watch how your life changes.
Okay. We have one person that mentions, you've talked about one day earlier in the week that we don't always follow what we want to do, that we don't follow our choices. And can you explain about carbon-based memory, what you refer to as that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, actually, it's an interesting dynamic when you start to understand it and recognize that the Aramaic language was a physics language. It wasn't a theological language. And, a lot of times people turn things that were never meant to be religious into religion, and they're not. They're simply, here's how the world works. So let's take a word which a lot of people have a charge on, and that is the word Christ. The word Christ, you remember Paul said the goal of his work was to be of like mind with Christ. What mind did Christ think with? And was this word Christ about a man? Well, if you look into history and you want to be truthful, what you'll find is the word Christ in Aramaic means an office. It is not the name of a man. It was Jesus or Yeshua of Nazareth who became known as the Christ. The word literally means the buttered one, the anointed one. And so an anointing on someone who had spiritually awakened was what that word meant. And so when you look at that, you find that one who lives in the mind of Christ, and that would be any of us. I don't care whether it's Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever it is, that mind of Christ was the mind of love, an actual human mind, a human life. When we live in that human life, we're living in that mind. That's all that meant in Aramaic. And each one who would live there would be called that. And I know there are going to be people who object to that, but, excuse me, I'm just a messenger. Go look at the Aramaic. That's the language that was spoken and that was delivered in. Please, please, please give up Greek philosophy put into the words of that New Testament, because it's not there. So this living in the mind of love is our birthright. It is how we claim a human life. And then if you look at the idea that your so-called body-mind unit is an energetic system that registers every frequency that comes to it, literally every thought, every feeling, every reality we engage in is stored holographically in every cell of our structure, including the sperm and the egg. And if there are energies that are off the mark, those energies off the mark were called sin. Not some terrible, awful, evil thing you've done, not some identity to buy. That's a fraud. The idea of sin is it's an archery term, and when you miss the target, the scorekeeper yelled, sin, you're off the mark. And so to take in an energy that's off the mark for a human is to take in hostility or fear. And then you remember they said the sins of the fathers would be passed, yea, unto 3 and 4 generations. Or they said, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. What they were telling us was, folks, here's how human physiology works. If your mother, if your father have an unresolved energy of hostility or fear, at conception, that frequency stored in their genetics will be passed to you, and you will tend to hold that hostility or fear. That's why people tend to become like what they hate the most, because if they have some sort of enmity towards mother and father, they end up functioning out of that very enmity because it's in them. That's why I said you must forgive from your heart that which you've projected into your mother, your father, or whoever it is. Remember, if you're feeling it, it's about you. If you're hiding it, you think it's about somebody else. But you can't get out of the fact that you're feeling it. And, I mentioned the other day we have this test we've developed in this work for determining whether or not something you're feeling is yours or not. It's a really complex test to apply, and the test goes like this. Are you feeling it? If you're feeling it, it's in your physiology. There's no other way to feel it. You can't feel anybody else's. So this device, this body-mind unit, stores everything in it from generation to generation to generation. When they said the wages of sin is death, that wasn't a theological threat. God's going to get you for your sins. It just said, if you put enough disintegrative energy into certain cells, those cells are going to start to fall apart. You get enough cells falling apart, and you die. It's just the way the system works. So if you ask a modern-day physiologist what this so-called body-mind unit, what this energetic device is made up of, what the base element is in it, they'll tell you that it's made up of carbon. And if you look into the carbon atom, what you'll find is that a carbon atom is made up of 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. 6, 6, 6, the mark of the beast. It's your own carbon-based memory. It's generations and generations and generations. You remember the Jews wandered in the desert for 40 years, 2-week journey, 40 years. Why did they wander for 40 years? Everybody knows, especially you ladies, you know why. Moses wouldn't stop and ask for directions. It was really Mrs. Moses who finally asked for directions, and no, just kidding. What had to happen in order to get from the desert to the promised land? They said the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. It was that everything in your 666 carbon-based memory system had to be removed in order for you to be restored to a human life, in order to be restored to the active presence of love. If you are trapped in the thoughts and the feelings of the last 4 generations, think about what's gone on, your parents' lives, their parents' lives, their parents' lives, and theirs. There's your 4 generations. That's stored in your physiology, and it tends to make up your reality structure, the pictures your mind makes up. And so that carbon-based memory is something that we need to overcome the influence of to step into a human life and to actually live not in a religious mind, but in the mind of love, our birthright. Jeannie, I understand you've got a caller or two on the line?
Yes, actually one of them has hung up, but I believe that this other caller is Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Jeannie. Hi,
Michael. Hey there, young lady.
Wonderful to
How are you?
How are you guys? I am doing wonderful. How are you?
We are awesomely blessed and highly favored.
Oh,
Holding the space
great.
for everybody in our audience to be the same. Now, for those who haven't met Carol or haven't listened in on her show, yesterday we talked with Diane. Carol is the leader, the initiator, and the creator of the Angel Network Radio, and she has a show on Mondays on the Fifth Dimensional Living. So tell us about that, Carol.
Well, the fifth dimensional living is living in that higher state of consciousness. It's living from that space of love. Once you've cleaned out all of these things that you've been talking about, you're able to step into a higher dimension, and you can experience that high state of divine love, that pure essence of love. And when you can step into that, you see the world and experience the world in a totally different manner, and it's just magnificent. So Diane and I speak about that on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right after your Monday show. And then I do have a show on Fridays. I didn't do it this morning. One of my other hosts did it because I'm on a project right now. It's called Angel Answers. So Amy took that show this morning for me.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
based on what we're saying, did you and you know when you talk about that fifth dimensional living, my brain cells say, oh, well, so you're talking about actually living a human life rather than the non-human life of hostility and fear. Yes, that's
absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
And thank goodness there are a lot of people working on that project.
Absolutely, yes, it is. I was very interested in what you said. I have Evelyn Ballin here with me too, the heart painter. Hello,
yeah,
Michael.
Last week, actually, we did our last 6 workshops at Evelyn Center, the Heart Painter Studio in Boca Raton in Royal Palm Place,
yes.
just between Palmetto and Camino Royale. It was awesome studio, awesome art, and thank you again for hosting us last week and the week before.
Oh,
it was
thank
delightful.
you, Michael. It was my pleasure, believe me. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So do you ladies have any questions or thoughts based on anything we talked about? We did 6 workshops at Evelyn's studio, so anything that comes up for you around what we just said or what went on in the workshops, that'd be awesome to hear your thoughts or questions.
Yeah, I think Carol had a question. Hang on a second. Carol, you can.
Yeah, Michael, I have a couple of questions. I was just listening to what you were talking about how our genetics are transformed into what we're experiencing into our genes now. But what you were mentioning, you mentioned that it depends on what is happening with our parents during our conception. In that moment, if they're in hostility and fear in that moment of our conception, that comes through into our genes as well. That's very interesting that it's that in that moment. You know, I mean, what does that say about what's going on here? Is that our parents in that conception of having us can be experiencing these things? You know, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and well, actually, it goes a little further than that because what happens is that any frequency put into the sperm or the egg, which means every frequency your parents experience, from their conception onward is passed on to the next generation,
right.
Certainly more reinforced. One of the things I talk about in our Healing Through Relationships workshop is you want to be very conscious of what frame of mind you're in when you enter into physical intimacy, because it is one of the most creative spaces and one of the most powerful spaces on the planet for intensifying that mind energy. And so,
that's
so
powerful.
Like, don't get intimately involved in a state of any form of hostility or fear. A lot of people use sex as a drug, as a way to soothe themselves and clear out energy, rather than go into it consciously, especially if you may be conceiving a child, because that energy at the moment of conception is going to impact that whole child's life.
You know, that's very interesting, and I think
more
people.
Of. Go ahead.
What I was going to say, that's very interesting for people that are women out there or couples out there that are wanting to have a child, that have been working really hard to have a child. They've been doing everything they possibly can to have a child. that they really need to be conscious of them being in fear, because when you're under that pressure of you're really wanting a child, unfortunately that isn't just a love-based feeling. That is actually a fear-based feeling of especially when you've been through so much, trying all these different methods, all these different things that put you in that fear base. So I think that people need to be really aware of that. That's very, very interesting information that you just shared with all of us.
Well, also, it's very common for someone who tries and tries and tries and tries and tries to have a child and they finally just give up, which if you look at it, that involves the definition of forgiveness from the Aramaic when they finally cancel the goal. Okay, we're going to stop trying to have children, and they adopt. 2 years later, they're pregnant.
Right.
A year later,
that's the thing.
What happened?
That's same with my son.
The release happened in the body. The release happened in the body with the release of that goal. And that, in essence, is the definition of forgiveness. It's how forgiveness happens. So it's
and
a really
that's very
common
true
thing.
Because my son, when I was pregnant, I'm very intuitive, as everybody that's listened to our show, because I hear angels, and I knew that I was going to have a son. I knew I was supposed to have a son, and so we started playing the game of trying to make this happen. And we spent a year doing this, and once I said, you know what, okay, I'm done, whatever, and I let go and I just lived life and got on, well, then what happened? I got pregnant.
Yep.
So, because I released that.
Yeah, and anybody that wants to go to the website and download the worksheet, under download worksheets, you'll see a 7-step reality management worksheet. The core step in the Aramaic language, the word forgive, is the word shabag, and it literally means to cancel. And forgiveness, there's a whole explanation that goes along with it. That explanation's in the chapter 24 you can download from the book if anybody wants to do that. But the whole essence of forgiveness is that in order for your mind to make sense of the world, it is a goal-based device. You have to load a goal in your mind in order for it to produce any kind of a picture, any kind of a reality that makes any sense or makes any nonsense. And the nonsense is any form of hostility or fear. And the essence of forgiveness is to be willing to cancel the goal, the driver that drives the nonsense mind, the hostility and fear-based mind. And when you cancel that, it opens a space where you can move into the dissociated mind directly and clean it out. And that's exactly what happens, I believe, to the person who finally decides to adopt. They've let go of that goal. And as you're attesting, when you let go of the goal, all of a sudden your physiology opened up and you're able to have a child. So, hey, we could market you. I mean, there are women who are spending tens of thousands of dollars and going through all kinds of trauma. Let's give these folks forgiveness, and what they're going to find is results change.
And it's better for the child, too, because you're going to bring in a child that's not going to have that vibrational energy in them as well, which is going to change our whole society and the human race.
Yes.
So.
Consciously conceived children. It's an awesome idea and an awesome concept. And of course, consciously conceived children, one of the things we get into in our workshop on codependence to interdependence, we point out that the codependent, or the person who functions out of hostility or fear, or the non-being mind, the codependent doesn't have relationships with other beings. They have relationships with bodies. And when we think of ourselves as a body, the tendency is that we're now living as a non-being, thinking ourselves as a body. Once one discovers, here I am a being of love, and I now form a relationship with another being of love, it's not about their body anymore. It's about being and relationship. And that just opens a whole other level. And, I came from a culture where, I was taught I was a body, and, of course, the other people I was in relationship with bodies, and the idea of a being never entered my mind until I started to do the Aramaic work, and then it's like, oh, we're not bodies, we're beings, and the being that we are, everybody agrees, the newborn is love, the being is love. And then what happens is the world tends to start coming in and putting thumbprints on us, and we end up functioning out of the genetics that are insane. And, that's basically the state of the union today and the state of the culture, and it's time for us to make a shift and to make a change. And you look at, take it to another level. You're talking about how you conceive a child and how things happen and leadership happen in a home. We can take that into the way leadership happens in countries. There were a couple of fellows who started a thing called the Civility Project a couple of years ago. And basically what they did, of course, they invited everybody on the planet, but in particular, they went to every person in Congress, which, if I remember correctly, is 535 people. They went to every governor of every state, 50 people, so almost 600 people, and they asked them to sign a civility pledge, function like a human being, folks. So they spent 2 years trying to get Congress and the governors of our states to sign a civility pledge. And the civility pledge was simply this. When someone is in disagreement with me, I will treat them in a civil manner. Guess how many of the 600 leaders of our country they were able to get to sign a civility pledge?
How many?
Years. 3.
3, wow.
3 people.
Wow.
And they said that they would not even repeat the language that many of those who refused, and sadly and unfortunately, they said mostly the conservative faction, which tends to say how religious it is, they said the conservative faction, the language they used in refusing, the viciousness they spoke with was just horrendous. And my offering is we need human leadership. That should be the first criteria for entering into any form of leadership, is to be a human being. But, if you identified yourself as a body and the people around you as bodies and your stuff is what's important, it tends to get to be pretty crazy. And sadly, human life is not very active in our world and on our planet. We're here to bring it back into expression and into experience.
Absolutely.
And of course,
and that's what we're here about.
Everybody's got one. One of the things I've done a lot of work with over the years is a thing called A Course in Miracles. And I love one of the ideas in The Course in Miracles where it says, you need not seek for love, you need only seek, find, and release the barriers you've built within yourself against it.
Absolutely, yes.
And once you let go of that, all that's left is a human life. And
well, then everybody needs to get on it. Yes, we all have it. We just got to get back into it, and that's what we're all about here with your shows, with all of our shows here at Earth Angels Radio. And we're just really grateful that you are part of this, and you're doing amazing work, and we love it.
So are we. And Evelyn, we did, 2, 6, 12, 15 hours last week, the week before. Any questions on any of it, or did it all just fall into place? You got a question or a thought for us, Evelyn?
You have a question or a talk about last week? I thoroughly enjoyed last week. I think I'm just can't wait till you get back. I'm processing everything that you guys were talking about. It was terrific, and I'm getting awesome feedback from people.
Fabulous. Well, Sunday, you'll be amazed. I mean, you did a 2.5-hour version of Why Is This Happening to Me Again a week ago Monday. That was our first workshop there. And we're going to do that again on Sunday here in Fort Lauderdale, only it'll be the 3.5-hour version. If you happen to have the space, I promise you will be amazed at what I've learned in just 2 weeks if you attend that Why Is This Happening to Me Again on Sunday. It will take on whole new levels and layers of meaning that will astound you. So if you've got the space, come and play Sunday afternoon from 2 to 5:30 in Fort Lauderdale. The website has the flyer on it. And if that doesn't work, that's cool. But anybody else who's interested, we're going to be starting a 7-day workshop series on Sunday afternoon. Wow. We're going to be on Las Olas Boulevard, or just off of Las Olas, down toward the beach. And we'll be doing Sunday afternoon, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and all day Saturday, MindShifters and Still Point Breathing. So,
I hope all of the listeners come. Yes, everybody ought to go and check you out because you're amazing. You're a fabulous speaker and have so much great information to give everybody.
That's our job. That's what we're here for. Every mind, heart, and being on the planet is the goal, and that's why our travel workshops are done free. There's actually one workshop that we do charge a fee for, and we're going to do that one next Saturday. We maybe do that one maybe 8 or 10 times a year. We don't do it very often. But it's a pretty deep process-oriented workshop called MindShifters and Still Point Breathing, and we'll step into a process called Still Point in that workshop. And if anybody's up north and wants to get a little reprieve from that stormy winter weather, you might just come take a week down in Fort Lauderdale. Awesome vacation.
It's 82 degrees now.
The daytime, it's 82 degrees. The sun. I'm actually in the pool as we're doing. I love the technology. I'm in the pool with my Bluetooth headset on and the phone over at the side of the pool, and I'm just hanging out in the water as we're doing the radio show. It's awesome. So, if you're up north, take a week off and come down. You've got the daytimes to go to the beach and then our evening workshops and all day Saturday. It'd be cool to have you here.
Yes, and definitely a great idea to come and learn, that's for sure. Grow by listening to Michael Ryce, that's for sure.
Awesome way to do a vacation. And, our whole process is that of sharing tools, and we want to do more than have people listen. And, as we talk about these things, it shifts and people change their minds. That's the idea of MindShifters. But more so is to take the tools and put them to work into your life and make them your own. I can't change anybody's mind. I can provide a space. I can provide the tools. There aren't many. The first 6 years or so I was involved in this work. I was in it part-time. I was in the business world. And then about 34 years or so ago, I learned that the best way to be a full-time student of this work was to be a full-time teacher. And not many people are going to take 34 years of their lives to learn these tools. I've put them into a shorthand form and said, here it is, now do the work. And it's the doing of the work that really, really shifts and makes people's lives different.
I think people need to have their lives shift. And when they listen to you and they get the information, that's when they get the ahas. I saw so many people in the week that you had spent at the studio, inspiring people, and they walked away with ahas. I saw lights go off, brain, fire coming out of people's brains, like, oh my God, that's it. That's what I've been needing to hear. So if you want to get your mind and your whole life shifted, totally come and hear Michael Ryce speak, because, get a better life, listen to some great information, and get a better life. What more do we want than a better life, right?
Yeah. And, of course, if you can't make a trip to Fort Lauderdale, we're going to be on the radio. We're playing this forever. This will be here. We're going to carry forward and keep this circle of MindShifters on the radio expanding to be supportive people, questions, thoughts, how do the tools work, join
and your
us
website is
and
amazing.
move it forward.
You can get so much amazing information off the website, michaelryce.com, right?
No.
Oh, why
yeah, well,
is
no,
it?
it's whyagain.com. You can Google Michael Ryce, R-Y-C-E, and while we're talking about the website, kudos and acknowledgement and awesome blessings to Jeannie for being the person who, never having done a website before, when we met, said, I'm going to take it on, I'm going to learn how to do it, and it's awesome, Jeannie, what you've done to understand how to put that website together. And, folks, you can spend weeks on the website, and around every corner, Jeannie's hidden another piece of gold, and every one of them will lend to that changing of your life.
Exactly. And that's a testament to you, Michael, and your information, because Jeannie probably opened up her world just feeling like she could do anything, and went and learned how to build websites. So that's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, I almost hate to admit it. I used to be in the electronics field, and I've worked with my hands all my life. But, if there's something around the house that needs to be fixed or put together, Jeannie's the one who's the best skilled at it. She's amazing, and, she chooses to learn something, and she just moves forward. And, while we're on the road and doing all of this, she's also going to school full-time. So it's a pretty awesome lady here. Jeannie, what's your thought?
Thanks. I appreciate that. Before I forget, I just wanted to say that Diane is in the chat room, and she said to tell Carol and Evelyn both hello, that she's listening to your voice.
Hey, Diane.
Hi. And I just wanted to put the number out there again. The call-in number is 646-200-4169. And then just announce again that if you go to our website, whyagain.com, and click on schedules, it's filling up. We have got 7 days here in Fort Lauderdale, followed with the breath workshop, and then we have
Yeah, it's actually 8 days in Fort Lauderdale because we're doing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday here on Las Olas. And then on the Sunday, the 13th, there's another website which is pretty awesome called intherooms.com. And In the Rooms is a social networking site for people in recovery. And In the Rooms is supporting our workshop at BRT, which is a new recovery and treatment center in Pompano Beach. So that's where we'll be on Sunday. And, of course, the workshop's open to anybody who might want to join us. It isn't only for people in recovery. It's being sponsored, however, by In the Rooms. Thank you to RT and Ken out there for supporting us in that. I'm looking forward to that. And then actually then on the Friday the 18th, it's awesome just how many different places are opening up. We're going to be doing a Shabbat service for Jewish Renewal Community here in South Florida, and that's going to be at a place called the Art Center in Fort Lauderdale. And then the following Wednesday, we'll be doing a Why Is This Happening to Me Again? In an abbreviated form, but a Why Is This Happening to Me Again service at Community Center over off of, let's see, I'm not that familiar with the western part of town, but kind of southwest. Say it again?
It's East Sunrise Boulevard.
Yeah, that'll be the Friday night, but then on Wednesday, the following Wednesday, it's at another location, and it's a community center, and I don't recall the name of it offhand, but you can. It's on the flyer anyway with the address. So we'll be doing that Wednesday night from 6 to 8 to. Pardon me.
It's from 7 to 9.
7 to 9. 7 to 9. So many details falling in place. It's hard to keep up with it all.
And then we have the New Life Expo on the 19th and 20th.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we'll be speaking there and having a booth at the New Life Expo. Thank you to Mark Becker for helping us to get that, and to Howard Dean getting that set up. Awesome. Watch how things move forward. So any other questions there? Okay. Ladies, are you still on the line with us? Do you have any other thoughts or
no, I actually
answers?
muted them there. But we do have something that you might want to address, and I was getting ready to write a response, but since you've got a break here or an intermission here that you can address it. It's about misconceptions of each other, and I was getting ready to respond that, we each have our own reality, and it says more about ourselves than it does about the world that we think we're looking at, and that our reality may be similar to what's actually going on, but then again, it may not. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, when you look at the output of the human mind, I don't care what the situation is. For instance, if you've ever been in a courtroom where 6 different people testified about an accident, you'll wonder if any 2 of them were at the same accident. How come their descriptions are so different? Well, when we look through our brain at what we think is the world, we're not looking at the world at all. Our whole culture suffers from a misperception. When we're looking through our brain, we're looking at the content of our brain. And once you realize you're looking at the content of your brain, every attribute that you give everybody in your life is an attribute that you have. Because the output of your mind always tells you more about the content of your mind than the world you think you're looking at. So if you look at someone and you go, oh, and they're a rotten new, and you have all kinds of upset around it, you know that you're looking at your own content. And when you start to do the work, what you'll find is you'll be empowered to change that disturbed or upsetting or painful content. When you do, guess what? You'll start to see everybody differently. In fact, one of the most common things we hear from people is, it just amazed me how when I start to do my work, they changed. And, Jeannie, you shared the other day about that gentleman who took the commitment and shared with you that although he was on the verge of divorce, all of a sudden he and his wife were like, we're on their honeymoon again. And he shared that he was reading it to her every day. And Jeannie said, well, is she reading it back to you? And he said, what do you mean? And she said, well, is your wife reading the commitment back to you? And he said, well, she doesn't know I'm reading it. I'm not reading it to her in front of her face. I'm doing it in the bathroom by myself. So reading it to her. And all of a sudden, the relationship starts to dramatically change. It's all an inside job. It's all done with smoke and mirrors. And that's one of the awesome things about the reality management worksheet is each time somebody sincerely does a worksheet, what happens is they learn something about themselves that they didn't know. And as you start to learn those things you didn't know about yourself, you stop blaming everybody else for the fact that those attributes are in you. The output of the mind always tells more about the content of the perceiving mind. That's why Yeshua, in his genius, said, you must forgive from your heart. You're unconscious, that which you think is all your brother's fault. And as you do, everything starts to change. Well, it's kind of getting to where I'm almost all the way into the pool. The water is cold. The air is about 82, but the water is cold. So anybody that wants to come join me in the pool, please do.
Again, the call-in number is 646-200-4169. We have about 9 minutes left. If anyone has any questions.
Wow, have we gone through 50 minutes already?
Yes, we have.
Time flies when you're having fun.
You know, you were talking about...
Any other questions?
Oh, I was just going to say, give the example. You know, we were doing a workshop here a few weeks ago, and I had been working for several months on an issue in my life of not feeling like I was really paid attention to, or that I was, you know, real important or anything like that. And I've been doing a lot of worksheets on it. And we did a workshop, and occasionally during the workshops I'll put in, you know, my 2 cents here and there. And during the intermission, a young woman asked if she could speak to me, and she pointed out, she was like, you know, when you gave that guy some information, said he didn't even look at you. He kept looking at Michael. Didn't you feel dissed about that? And prior to my doing all the worksheets and everything, I would have definitely noticed that. And I looked at her and I was like, wow, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I hadn't even paid attention, but he wasn't paying attention to me. And it was, you know, nothing else really changed except I changed my outlook on it. And so then I offered her, I said, perhaps you need to do some worksheets on that. But
on being paid attention to or being important. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, Jeannie,
to me that the worksheets had worked.
Yeah. Oh, they absolutely do. And by the way, your 2 cents isn't 2 cents worth. It's $1 million worth. Your input, the energy you bring to this work is so awesome and such a blessing to so many people. $1 million isn't enough.
Thank you.
Are you breathing?
No.
No. Huh. Okay, well, a little more work to do around that issue, and here we go. You know, it's all a process. We're all in process. It's like
Go ahead.
There's a book, and I forget the author's name, but he works in prisons, and his book is We're All Doing Time. And everybody's got work to do, and nobody's arrived. I've never seen anybody who's arrived. We're all in process, and once you recognize that, it makes the space to have a whole lot more compassion for people and for yourself, and recognize without a question, 7 billion people on planet Earth are made of the thing called love, period. End of story. Nothing else. Well, what about, you know, Saddam Hussein? What about, I don't care who the what about is. Every human being is made of the stuff called love. That's how we started. And then we came into a genetic history, and we brainwash and we program. One of the things Jeannie's put on the website is pretty cool. They're fun. They're awesome. But she's put a bunch of different things on the website for with animals in it. For instance, if you don't know the story of the lion called Christopher the Lion, go to the website and watch the video. It's awesome. There's this 2 guys, I forget where they were from, New York or whatever, and they had a baby lion, and they raised this lion until it just got too big. Where was it?
London.
In London? In London, England. So they raised this lion to adulthood and, of course, couldn't handle it anymore and flew it to somewhere in Africa. And there's a video of these 2 guys who, I think it was a year later, go back out to the jungles in Africa where they let this lion go. And all of a sudden you see them, you know, they're looking and trying to make a connection with this lion again. And all of a sudden this huge lion comes charging down the hill at them. And it's like, man, I hope that's the right lion. And this lion comes up to these guys and jumps up on them and licks them and kisses them and hugs them and paws them and plays with them. I mean, this is a huge, full-grown lion. And the female, its mate, comes in with it. And these guys are able to reach over and pat this female lioness that's never had contact with humans. What have we learned? What have we done? And what impact do we have? You know, when you look at, you know, I would imagine that if either of these guys walked through the jungle and met this lioness, she'd have taken a chunk out of them. They'd probably been dead. But the male lion, Christopher, who knew these guys, comes down. I mean, this lion jumps up at them. I mean, he's taller than they are, paws them. And, if you think about it on an energetic level, here's Christopher, who has a space of love for these two people who raised him. And the female comes in and has the same space of love. They actually reach over and pet this female lioness's head. Now, what do you suppose happens when a human being called a child is with an adult who holds a space of rage and hatred for someone? And we wonder why, that second generation is vicious with someone who's a representative of whatever that group it is, whatever group one is prejudiced against. And so, naturally, the energy of the leader of the pack becomes the energy that tends to run the pack. This male creates a space of safety for these two guys who would normally be torn to shreds by this lioness. Do you suppose that if you could hold a space of love for your parents and the prejudices they had and the people that they had, do you suppose that you might be able to walk into the space that maybe 1,000 generations have had hatred and rage and fear of, but that next generation would be transformed in their experience by you actually returning to a human life and holding that space of love? I'd offer that's exactly what would happen. And that's what we're about doing. That's what our goal is. That's what motivates Jeannie and I to be on the road 6 to 10 months of the year. We go anywhere on the globe we're invited. Our workshops are free. We pay our own expenses, not because we're independently wealthy. Our work comes out of people who go, this has benefited me, and I'll donate to support you. By the way, you could, if you chose to, donate to support this work. If you get a lot out of this radio show, jump on our website. On the right-hand side, you'll see a button that says donate. And, do something. Do something to support it. We go every corner of the earth that we're invited and pay our own expenses. We don't do that because of being independently wealthy or having some big corporation behind it. We do it because we're committed to putting these tools in people's hands. And that's what our lives are about, and we invite you to consider supporting us in doing that.
Someone just asked where the link was about the animals, and it's www.whyagain.com/one.php. And there's also a link over in the menu bar that says We Are One.
So why again is the word why, W-H-Y, spelled out, and the word again, A-G-A-I-N, as in the title of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, whyagain.com. And that's where you'll find. And she's got just, I don't know how many on there. I mean, she's got pictures of what is it, a tiger taking care of piglets? I mean,
yeah,
it's
there's
just awesome.
A
cat taking care of, or is it with some crows taking care of a kitten?
A crow taking care of a kitten and a parakeet, monkeys and tigers, and just all kinds of them. I need to get the one that you got the other day where the raccoon comes in carrying that kitten.
Oh, that's such an awesome picture. But, we are programmed. We get structured in what we're not. And if you look at these animal pictures, these animal happenings, you see that these are learned things. This, eating another species, destroying, killing, hating, fearing, is all learned. It's not necessary. It's not part of our original human nature, and we could change this on the planet. How much time we got, sweetie?
We have about 1 minute, and I wanted to add one other thing. We also are on
Facebook. Go ahead.
If you go to www.whyagain.com/Facebook.php, there's 2 links because we have 2 different Facebook pages out there. So click on them and join our community.
Cool. So go to our Facebook page, become a fan, tell people about it. There's a link on the home page of whyagain.com to get to this radio show, and Jeannie's putting the downloads there so you can link and go directly to them. Any show that you particularly like, you can refer others to and pass it on. We're working to take this to every mind, heart, and being on the planet, and we would love to have you on the team and support, and we want to be on your team and support you in doing it. So pass it on. Pass it on, move it forward. Put it on your Facebook page. Blog about it. Talk about it. There are real, honest-to-God, simple, straightforward how-to tools for reestablishing human life in any and every circumstance. And as you do, I mean, it just transforms everything in ways that are unimaginable. And what we're about is creating the space for you to have the best year yet of your eternal life. We are eternal beings. We're made of the stuff called love. Some of us have forgotten. Some of us have been programmed by previous generations and by the world that we're not that. And it's all a fraud. It's all a lie. And at any time you choose, reclaim your human life. And as you reclaim your human life, you will have the best year yet of your eternal life.
So join us again on Monday. We're off tomorrow and Sunday, but we'll be back Monday through Friday next week from 1 to 2 Eastern Standard Time. MindShifter Radio. Thank you and blessings. And it's over.